Good morning, everybody. Today we are continuing the malacha of Kosev. This is part 3, but don't worry if you're not here for parts 1 or 2. We'll be able to fill you in. What I want to read with you a Mishnah, and I want you to just simply tell me how would you translate this into English. You're learning with your son Mishnayos, God willing, in a few years from now. And your son says, just explain this Mishnah, Papa, Dad, right? How would you explain this? Here we go. Source number 1. Za'akla. Kol ha'oseh melacha u'melachto miskayemes b'Shabbos chayav. So how would you translate that into Anglaise? So Za'akla. Here's a principle. Here's a rule. Go ahead. How would you explain this? Just translate. Don't worry. Just translate.
This is the rule. Anyone who does melacha and his melacha lasts on Shabbos, then he's chayav.
Okay, so Alex read it and he said, if this melacha lasts on Shabbos, you're chayav. So what's the opposite of that?
If you do the melacha doesn't happen.
Or you do the melacha on Shabbos.
So do melacha. Let's use our example because we're talking about kosev. So here we go, kosev. Yeah. So let's talk it out. What would it look like?
I think if you write, but nothing comes out.
So if you write and nothing comes out, so that's not miskayemes. That's not, it doesn't exist. That's lo ba'lolam, right?
Or like
no?
The shear doesn't exist.
The shear doesn't exist.
The malacha, whatever the malacha is considered.
Whatever the malacha is considered, it doesn't fulfill. Okay. Could you read it a little bit differently? So where did you mulachto? What is the word? The word means kayemet. What is that modifying? Which word? Modifying the word? Malachta, right? So this malacha, there's a good malacha, this is an inferior malacha. If it's not miskayim, I guess it's part of a definition of something which is not miskayim. Now, b'Shabbos, does that mean on Shabbos? During Shabbos? How long, what's the definition of permanence? Has to be miskayim, has to have some type of permanent component to it. How do you define permanence? What does permanent mean? It has to last until Mashiach comes? Until the Yovel? Until Shemitah?
Has to be completed during Shabbos.
So let's take a classic example. Here's a pen, a nice beautiful JLIC pen. It has a little stylus at the end of it, right? So I click the pen and I write. So I read the word Shalom. According to all opinions, I violated, right? I wrote enough letters, I wrote a word. So here's my question. My question is, what gives it permanence? I hit my 2 letters. It's a word. But what would be, what's the definition of miskayim?
It lasts.
So, okay, how does it have to last?
Forever?
Forever. So you're saying forever, like it has to last until the binyan of the Holy Temple? What's it? Forever?
Until you're done.
Yovel?
Until it's like you're done using this whatever you want. Until it lasts however long you want it to last.
They have those pens for doctors, those Shabbos pens, and they go out after a few days, I think.
Okay, so hold on, we'll get there. Very good. We're gonna come back to those Shabbos pens for doctors. Good, hold on to that. Good, excellent. So you're saying it has to last for 3 days, right? So what does that mean? So what's miskayim? Is that 3 days? Is that 3 hours?
The duration of Shabbos.
Duration of Shabbos. So if I do it for argument's sake, 6:45. Oh, it has to last 24 hours.
Because that's what Shabbos is.
So therefore, if I use a pen and I write a whole paragraph 5 minutes before Shabbos ends, and that ink, and it has to last for 5 minutes, has to last for into Sunday evening.
Too much Shabbos.
Too much. Wait, no. How about if I do it 5 minutes before Shabbos is over? Most of Shabbos is in 10 minutes.
So it depends on
whatever. I say an hour.
No, but it's not lasting for the whole Shabbos.
Oh, so it has to last for whole Shabbos. You have to, going to Malacha, the second Shabbos starts? So you tell me if you write Shabbos morning, then is there no biblical violation? It's very difficult to do a Malacha that's going to last the entire Shabbos. That means I'm going to do Malacha the first second of Shabbos. I don't think that's the case.
I'm thinking of tying 2 knots, because 2 knots...
So by the way, this will be connected to Kesher Shel Kayama. This will be connected to Tofer. This, to some extent, isn't just a Kosev issue. The concept of Miskayim is going to apply. I mean, after all, take a look at source number 1. This is not a Kosev issue, is it? It's a Klal, right? This is referring to all malachas of Shabbos. I'm going to focus in on Kosef in a minute. We're not even there yet. But in Achinami, this is a malacha principle. Any malacha that you do on Shabbos has to be miskayim. So here the question is, where do you put the comma? Do you read this mission of the following? Kol osa malacha umulachto miskayemes, comma, Shabbos chayav. Or is the comma, and this is the way I think Alice might have read it, umalachto miskayemes b'Shabbos chayav. So here there's like a dash, or maybe it's kind of right, because kind of the dash maybe gave it away. That's the problem when the Barlan CD puts a little bit of punctuation in. Right, so it appears from here, and maybe the Barlan is being posek halacha. I don't know, right? That it should be read umalachto miskayemes b'Shabbos chayav. Yeah. So this we're going to see is a major machlokes in the poskim. Take a look at source 2. To save us time, I just kind of led us to gave us to the example. Take a look at this. And it's going to deal with what is considered tiyum. Right? Does it have to just last for Shabbos? But let's say, for argument's sake, 24 hours? Or does it have to last longer than that? Now, obviously, last forever is very difficult. What lasts forever? Nothing lasts forever. Right? So, I don't think that your malacha has to last longer than you. Right? So, take a look at the Shart Zion. He's going to bring down these opinions. Rotza Lomar. Ve'isa bereish perak haboneh d'binyan davka shethem malachto miskayemes gam inyan ksiva kaymalan v'inan davka sheyichtov b'davar hamiskayem. Okay, so as we're going to see, because we're going to see the Rambam, it must be b'davar hamiskayem. So when you write on Shabbos, it has to be b'davar hamiskayem. Now, what do you think that means? You have to write with something which is mitkayem. What are you referring to? What will last? So what are the two facets of writing? There's two different components when you write.
The paper and the pen.
Excellent. Very good. Right? There's the paper and there's the pen. What would be considered lack of miskayim in the pen? In the ink? No, that doesn't exist. If, like you said, the example you gave, that the ink would disappear after X amount of time. 3 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 3 days, a week, a month, whatever our definition of being mitkayem, if we don't fulfill that in the ink, now, but there's another dimension, isn't there? And that's the paper. What's the definition of mitkayem in paper? What could you write on that potentially might not be considered permanent?
Window.
What do you mean by window?
Like when you
very good. You wake up in the morning and you see fog on your window. Right? We have a porch enclosure, so my kids like to, when they wait for carpool, when they get home, they like to, right? And they make those little pictures, then they can write letters. And how long do they last for? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on the weather, depending on what else happens. Good, wonderful.
There's no glue to hold whatever it is that you're using.
Okay, so you're saying, well, there's a window. What do you mean? No, windows are permanent. That window, man, is permanent. It better be permanent. A window's permanent.
No, but
I put a window in on Shabbos. It's bonet, right?
The paper holds the ink. The window doesn't hold anything.
Okay. So really, it's not the paper. It's the window isn't serving as a paper. Welcome. The window isn't serving as a paper. What is serving as the paper? This fog. This is probably a better word for it.
Is that the same as typing on a computer?
Okay. So what about typing on a computer? You type on a screen on a computer. Is that permanent? You click tab or alt tab and you flip a window.
Is it even writing?
Is it even writing? Good. Well, maybe we'll get there. I don't know about today. That's a great question. Is there ksiva on a computer? Right? Because okay, well, that's a great question. That will be an issue when it comes to writing God's name. How could you ever erase? You write God's name in a computer screen, you're in big trouble if it's considered, right? You can't erase God's name.
I get a lot of emails. I'm thinking if I can delete them.
Right. How do you ever change your screen? It's very problematic. Buy a new computer every few days. That's going to be a little crazy, no? Okay. So we are, just to bring up to speed, we are in source number 2. We're discussing what's the concept of permanence. What's considered miskayim in general malacha, and we're focusing on Kosef today. So the Shart Zion is going to tell us right away that when it comes to Kosef, for ksiva, it has to be permanent, and sheyichtov b'davar hamiskayim. And we said there are two dimensions of writing. There's the ink, and then there's what the ink is going on to, which classically is referred to as paper, but it doesn't have to be paper. Let's continue, please. The second line in source 2. Ach bereish perak haboni isa sham b'mishnah kol osam malachtu miskayim Shabbos chayav. Mashma lichora. Here we go. Afilu imiskayemes rak al yom Shabbos l'chud. If your writing lasts for Shabbos. Now, again, does that mean if I write 5 minutes before Shabbos, it only has to last 5 minutes? Does that mean it has to last 24 hours? Does that mean it's a little bit unclear? A little bit unclear. But one thing's for sure is that the Varsha Miskayim is going to be less than 24 hours or whatever, 25 hours, right? Sorry, Miskayim you won't need, I apologize, more than a day, right? Potentially, you might even be okay with less than a day. But you would not need to violate this or Doraisa. You already would violate it if it lasts more than a full day. Le'inyos dasi berambam, le'inyos berambam, and periktas, le'yigimo, ayin shametev, mishnah klala, v'korach, anzuchin lamar. Ma shah mishnah, here we go, this will be very important. Poteres, v'chsav she'eno shel kayama. The mishnah will exempt you, and we'll see that actually in a few minutes, if you use ink, she'eno shel kayama. What's it referring to? B'mashki nemei peros. You take orange juice, you take apple juice, and you write with it. That's not considered permanent.
How is it different than fog?
Sorry?
How is it different than
different
fog?
Than writing in fog.
Why? Fog is only particles of water that evaporate.
No, so again, I write, so it's the same. So, you're saying that juice is more permanent?
Yeah.
By the way, it's a great question. I'll tell you why. If you go to the cleaners, Mr. Cleaners, I just spilled grape juice on my shirt. Oh, I'm sorry. Can't get that out, it's permanent. Or requires a tremendous amount of chemicals to remove a stain. I don't know. Doesn't that make it permanent? What do you mean? Why is it that mashkin or made peros, why is it not considered permanent? The Mishnah says you write with fruit juice, not permanent. What is not permanent?
Well, grape juice is fruit juice normally. They call it yain. So.
Okay, it's the orange juice.
So like orange juice also, the coloring doesn't have coloring.
Okay, very good. It must be very good that if you take an apple and you squeeze it out, still, what percentage of water is it? Right? It's whatever it is. Right? Whatever it is. Probably 99%. Right? Meaning, what we're seeing here is I know that this is not, it's just like a spray. Using regular juices clearly has the same permanent as ink. It might be difficult to erase, but again, it is not what is commonly used to write. No one says, "Oh wow, brand new pen. It's called the orange juice pen." Right? Writes in orange juice. I mean, it's absurd. It's ridiculous. Right? You don't do that. Right? So it appears if you use something which isn't normally used, and at the end of the day, I would imagine that when you write with orange juice, it fades. It still fades over time, right? So maybe that's part of it. Okay, and let's go on. He says it doesn't even last for that day. Achin berashi shamisa b'mishnah dahai b'Shabbos ha'osa malacha kai im ken masher minei dbinyan sheyihi miskayim tamid v'lo yodeh b'yom Shabbos l'chud. Rashi's opinion, and he's going to be a Dashi Achid, says that if your ink only lasts for Shabbos, it's not enough. For Rashi, miskayim tamid. Now, tamid doesn't mean until like the war of Gog and Magog, right? Tamid means a very long, extended period of time. So we are going to see there will be machlokes rishonim. What is considered davar miskayim? Rashi is going to hold miskayim tamid. That when you're using it, it's going to last forever. A week, 2 weeks, a month, a year, meaning you're doing something and it is going to last, right? If this piece of paper were to sit here on this desk, there's no reason why the letters are going to begin to disappear. It will take a very, very, very long time, right? Okay, so that would be tamid, as opposed to other rishonim. For example, the Rambam, No, not the Rambam. Who is it? We'll see in a second, actually. Im ken masher minei binyan she'etem u'binyanu eni yodea du'ulahu miskam al yom HaShabbos v'tosfos v'erlu karashi tosfos gives Rashi or the tosfos v'erlu karambam or the tosfos like the Rambam for yom HaShabbos or miskayim l'kalim pator. So there's actually a machlokas in the Rishonim. What is considered miskayim? We are going to have two different schools of thought. We're going to have one school of thought that's going to argue just about Shabbos. The other school of thought says no, it needs greater permanence. Guess what the halacha l'maisa is? We're going to be machamir, and we're going to say, we're playing with Doraisas here, that if something lasts for Shabbos, it will be considered, we're worried about Doraisa, and that's why for those pens that those doctors are going to use, we're going to want them to only last for 24 or fewer hours, in which case by Motzei Shabbos or first thing Sunday morning, they're going to need to be rewritten. A friend of mine who's a doctor in Israel says he hates those pens. He says they're terrible. What? He says they don't even last. Like sometimes they don't even last like 2 or 3 hours, and they're very bulky and thick. Could be now.
What are they made out of? Like what ink do they use?
Israelis are very smart. I'm sure they figured out an ink.
Like orange pen, like snap, you know.
You never seen these pens? They sell like in magic stores. You know, like these pens, like this, the ink can disappear over time, and sticky pens. Yeah. No. I've seen them before. These like pens that disappear.
So what happens if you have lots of snow outside and you go dig your feet and you make
right? Okay, so that's a good question.
Like in food, there's like a plate of food. People like make designs or like write them.
Okay, that's gonna be a great question. Can you take ketchup and say, "I love you," and give it to your girlfriend? Can you do that with ketchup? Letters on Shabbos, no? Haray at Mekadesh. Can you haray at Mekadesh Shali but ketchup zoo and you give it to on Shabbos would be a problem.
You can't make it kiyam on Shabbos.
Right. Right. So okay, so for sure it would be a daraisa writing ketchup.
It doesn't last.
Right, it's not going to last. So for sure it's not a daraisa. Would that be a darabanan? Writing the word Heinz? With a little heart? Writing on making a heart on Shabbos? Using ketchup? So it probably will be. Because you are writing, just because it's not permanent, it's still darabanan.
Is that hard? 2 letters?
No, but we're going to see pictures. Will be a problem. Yeah. Okay, so for all, by the way, this is super duper important because what about, let's say, diapers? How do you put a diaper on a baby on Shabbos? You fold the flaps down, meaning I know how to put a diaper on Shabbos. I'm saying how you do it halachically. You take a flaps and you put them down. No. Is that considered tofu?
Yeah, but it's likely that it's going to come up.
Oh, very good. So it must be that when you put down the flaps of a diaper on Shabbos, babies are changed regularly, hopefully. Right? It's very rare that you change your baby once every 24 hours. If you do, then you probably should go to jail because you're a bit of a delinquent parent. So if that's the case, when you put the flaps down, your intent is meaning if you were to leave that diaper like that adhesive would last forever, right? By the way, a Band-Aid's the same idea. You put a Band-Aid down, the adhesive in theory lasts forever, right? It could, but your intent is never for it to last forever. Your intent is you're going to take it off in 3 hours, in 6 hours, right? In which case, it makes a very big difference. At least according to opinion that says, is it a subjective type of kayama or is it an objective kayama? So it appears with what's your intent when you do it has a major impact on the malacha.
So if you need a Band-Aid, you can use a Band-Aid on Shabbos?
So that's why he's probably just Band-Aid on Shabbos. In Europe, but you probably can't use Band-Aid on Shabbos because your intent is only to be temporary, right?
How about you do the diaper by relationship?
What was that?
How about you do the diaper?
Oh, so it's the same. Okay, that's a great question. So you're doing it by there's an hour left of Shabbos.
Like 10 minutes before Shabbos.
Right. So the answer is it still would be okay. Why? Because
it doesn't last.
Because it doesn't last. Right. Meaning the fact that it lasts the end of Shabbos doesn't matter. What you're doing now is not a permanent thing because it'll be changed in 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 6 hours. Doesn't matter. It's not a permanent thing.
But was it one opinion that it lasts only for Shabbos?
So it must be that you can't. Doesn't mean last. It means it has to last for. It probably means it has to last for 24 hours. It doesn't appear logical that you can do malacha for 23 hours and it's okay, and you'll do the same malacha for 10 minutes and it's B'sur D'Oraisa. That doesn't make sense. Right? Can't be that you do the same malacha Shabbos morning. And since there's only 12 hours left of Shabbos, it's D'Urabanan. It's the exact same thing. Friday night and it's just D'Oraisa. It just can't be. It has to be. Shabbos means it has to last for that.
But even if you do something like on Shabbos and then like a minute later it's not Shabbos anymore, you're not over it because Shabbos ended. So why can't
I have a question. If you build a building on Shabbos, since Miskayim on Sunday,
why can't it be Miskayim finishes when Shabbos finishes? Just like if I tie knot on Shabbos, like a minute before Shabbos is over, I'm still over Isser D'Oraisa.
Alex, here's what's important. Don't get confused between the shear, meaning I have to finish the malacha, right? If I write one letter on Shabbos and that second letter after Shabbos, I did not violate an Isser D'Oraisa, because you have to write 2 letters. Right? But if I write both letters before Shabbos with permanent ink on a piece of paper, and that has an ability to last for a long period of time, so I violated Isser D'Oraisa.
Right. No, but
even though it's even though it won't last, even though that Shabbos will be over by the time 25 hours elapsed.
But I'm saying, like, why can't the permanence work the same way that the malacha works? That if you do the malacha on Shabbos, so then you're over this or D'Oraisa. But even though it's 10 minutes before Shabbos is over, like, what's the difference? Same thing with permanence. It's permanent for like 10 minutes.
So there's obviously 2 different things. There's the malacha, and when you do the malacha has to have permanence to it to violate the D'Oraisa. So if you do the malacha, 2 letters, and by doing it on Shabbos it has permanence, then that's the D'Oraisa. You don't need to have the duration of the permanence elapse during Shabbos. It's at this second when I do the malacha, does it have an ability to be permanent? D'Oraisa.
So why can't the permanence be defined only to Shabbos? That if you do it for however long Shabbos still has left, that it's considered to be permanent. It's permanent for Shabbos.
Whether it's 10 minutes or 24 hours?
Right.
And what about if someone were to come, I write Shalom on Shabbos. As I finish the word Shalom, a bird comes and snatches the piece of paper and rips it up into shreds and uses it for a nest. I have no idea if birds do that. Right? Or where an animal comes and devours it. Or fire comes from Shemayim and devours my piece of paper. Did I not violate a D'Oraisa?
That's not probable.
For sure I did.
Not probable.
No,
okay,
I don't think it depends on probability. I think it depends on his intent.
Right. My intent was to make this permanent. The fact that lightning came from outer space, a bird came, whatever it is, I don't know why I chose that bird case of building a nest, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
But still, the malacha will not miscam it.
No, but what's my intent? I'm doing it.
Doesn't matter. Your intent, there's 2 parts to the malacha. You're doing the one part, the second part's not happening. Even though your intent to do it, it's not happening.
So
it's like a tentative malacha.
Right, and so your intent, that's the permanent thing, like your intent to be for the rest of Shabbos, and that's the intent that you need in order for it to be.
So what about if I do a malacha that is permanent, my intent is not permanent? Is this an objective permanence or is it subjective permanence? I'll give you an example. I know with 100% certainty, because I have a non-Jew standing next to me, let's say, when I write the word Shalom, they're going to come and burn the piece of paper. They know. They told me I'm going to be paper. So my act is permanent. The ink is beautiful. The paper is beautiful. I curl my pinky when I get with the word in calligraphy. So did I violate a D'Oraisa? So again, my act is 100% permanent. My intent is not, because I know this guy's coming. My act is permanent.
No,
but I know.
Isn't that sort of like intent on condition? Like you know this person's going to come, but if he doesn't come,
he's coming. He's right next to me.
But if he doesn't take it, then this is going to be permanent. If he does take it, then
by him destroying it, does he save me from violating in Isser D'Oraisa?
I think so. What's that happening?
Maybe.
Right? It needs to be miskayim. It appears after halacha.
Like, isn't the halacha also like if you put, like, for bishul, if you put the pot on the stove and then you take it off, since nothing's cooked, you're okay, right?
Right, yeah. Right, but that's very different.
You're okay.
No, but here I have my 2 letters. I wrote my 2 letters. You can't compare the 2 cases. No, you didn't do bishul. We didn't do bishul. Here I did kosei.
No, but isn't like the permanence of miskayim, isn't that like essential to the malacha? Like if the malacha is not done unless
done with intent to be permanent.
Unless it actually becomes permanent. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right?
That means kind of like isn't actually part of the malacha itself, in a sense.
Right.
Like you can do the malacha without it being mikayim, and then still malacha.
Right, no. So let's hold on to that. I think that's going to be a very important distinction. But we're not. I want to. So that's actually going to be part 2. Let's. We don't have that much time. But let me just show you something really neat. take a look at 4. Let's just take a look at what appears to be a machlokas here. Look at 4. Ein HaKosav ad sheyichtov b'davar haroshim v'omer kegon dio v'shechor v'sikra v'kumus v'kal netus v'zebehen. The Rambam writes that on Shabbos you're not chayav unless you use ink that's basically proven. These are all different forms of ink, right? Yichtov al davar shemiskayim, but it's a two-way street. Not only must your ink be permanent, but your quote-unquote paper has to be permanent, right? Keep going. Alea shemiskayim aksav alav has to be permanently absorbed the ink, like or the kelef, the niyar, the etz, the zebehem. Aval hakosav b'davar she'ein rishumo omed. But if you write with something which doesn't last, like mashkin, miperos, or shekasav v'dio hisebo al ale yirakos, you write on a piece of lettuce, right? You take ink on a piece of lettuce. Kol davar she'no omed patur, right? Lettuce is not going to last; it's going to shrivel up. It's not, it's not. Eino chayav ad sheyichtov b'davar ha'omed al davar ha'omed, right? You have to put something permanent on something permanent. And then mechikas would be the inverse. Now, take a look. When anybody know when is basically the only time there's a biblical obligation for writing? It says in the Torah, "V'chasav la sefer kritus." When it comes to writing a get, the ksiva the writing of the get plays an integral role. The writing has to be proper writing. Okay? So, that's 5. Mishnah. B'chol kosvim. B'dio, b'sam, b'sigra, b'kulmus, b'dadad. Chol dvar shukayam. Ein kosvim, lo b'mashkin, lo b'meiperas, lo b'chol dvar shemiskayim. But now, look at the Mishnah. Al ha'kol kotvin. Al ha'ala shozayis. Al keren shapara. V'nosen la sapara. Al yad shal eved. V'nosen la seved. Etc. Etc. The Rebbe says he has an exception, can't write it on animals, can't write it on food. What's going on here? The Mishnah seems to say that when it comes to writing a get, if the ink is permanent, fantastic. But what about the paper? He says you could write on an alesh ozayis. You can write on a leaf of an olive branch, an olive leaf. Or the horn of a cow. Interesting. What might be the answer to this? Why is there a distinction between Shabbos and Gittin? What is considered writing? There's going to be 2 different ways to resolve this contradiction. What do you think? What's your gut reaction here? How would you resolve this contradiction? It appears, when it comes to Shabbos, has to be something which is miskayim. As opposed to for Gittin, if you write it in Ali Zayis, get is kosher. This is Gittin. You need the cut of law, sefer kritud, permanent. Right? How would you resolve this contradiction?
Didn't we say last week that it has to be some type of pushibus to the actual thing that you're writing, like a sefer Torah or
Agreed. So this, I don't know. This is a get, man. It gets pretty serious.
Right. So it's pushib. So it
counts. You're saying it's because of the get that gives it. So what about from writing a sefer Torah on a leaf? All right, forget leaf. A letter on a leaf. Davka by sefer Torah. Right. We saw that last week. 2 weeks ago we spoke about sefer Torah writing. So I'm not sure that would really work in this case.
This is the Mishnah. We don't have the rule like this, do we?
Yeah. We're gonna, okay, you actually make a very good point. Maybe we don't hold this with halacha. Okay, that's fair. I can accept that. What else could you argue? But no, we don't hold this way. Good. What else could you argue?
Like that's different because the point isn't to write on something. The point is to divorce it.
Okay, that I don't have a lower level demand by get than by Shabbos. So how would another way to say that would be I what? You can't necessarily connect Shabbos to other things in halacha. Maybe Shabbos is a separate din. Maybe Shabbos is benifrad. Maybe you can't necessarily connect the two and draw a klal Shabbos, Hilchot Shabbos, to other areas. Just because there's kotev, there's writing by Shabbos, do not extrapolate to other areas of writing like Gittin. Maybe by Shabbos I have a higher. What would be a svara to say I have a higher demand by Shabbos than by Gittin? I'm opening a line in our Mishnah, right? Malachta miskayim. There's a greater emphasis on kiyum by Shabbos. All you need to have by a get is be there, right? Somewhat permanent. Maybe I could argue that. Those would be the two. The other school of thought will be interesting. What word was used in the Rambam? I use the word lettuce. The word that's used is ale yerakos, right? Are ale yerakos the same as ale zayit? Maybe not, no? Look at Tosfot, source 6. Davka leshel zayit, says Tosfot. You know, the Mishnah chose an olive branch, specifically an olive branch. Because it's davar shemitkayem, meaning they are the same. Don't draw a distinction and say, oh yeah, it's like a vegetable leaf. No, it's specifically an olive leaf. That's why the example is used in Mishnah. Because that is an example of davar hamitkayem. This is davar mitkayem. Shabbos and Gittin are the same. Same demand.
Also, it says al kol kotrin. Does that mean?
Okay.
No,
Okay. So you asked me. Okay. It appears that Tosfot's not reading the Mishnah properly. Al kol kotvin. Okay. Okay. Good. Very good.
You're thinking about the cows.
Right. What about? I mean, is that permanent? Writing on a horn? I don't know enough about the properties of a horn that could absorb ink. I'm not sure.
On a hand, it's gonna get washed off.
Here on Tosfot says, "Dafka lashal zayit v'chayotzibo." It can also be other things.
I know other things that are permanent, like alei zayit, i.e., not alei yerakos. Right? He's saying anything which is mitkayim. Okay. Who's going to argue on this? Look at the Rambam, source 7. Just jump down to Lacha Gimel. Look what he says. Al ha'alin. Does Rambam say you have to write only on an alei zayit? No. Write it on a vegetable leaf, on a piece of lettuce, a get is kosher. It is clear, Machloket Rishonim. The Rambam holds, the Shitaso, you cannot necessarily extrapolate from Hilchot Shabbos onto other facets of halacha. Tosfot definitely is trying. Right? Definitely is trying to say, Kotev Devar Mitkayim. The concept of Kotev in writing is the Chotor Kula. And therefore, if this is what I demand by Shabbos, I will demand by Gittin. The Rambam will not necessarily say that Kotev, all Ktiva is related, is similar. But rather, there's Kotev by Shabbos, and I can make that a higher demand, more stringent, because we demand greater permanence. It's Melachem Machshevet Asra HaTorah. Supposed to a get. Oh, I don't need to have the same demand. I just need some type of piece of paper that has some type of text onto it. And if my ink is permanent, if my ink is clear, that's sufficient.
Can you say that Shabbos is Mekayem?
Sorry?
Can you say that Shabbos is Mekayem? Meaning that you're writing for the purpose of Shabbos. That your tent isn't that it lasts forever, but your tent is that you're writing for the purpose of that particular Shabbos. Whatever the reason may be, for a game, for a letter, for whatever it is, you're writing for Shabbos itself, not the last after Shabbos.
Maybe by Shabbos we want a greater sense of permanency. And if my intent is to have, we need greater permanency. I care both about, let's say, according to the Tosfot, I mean, according to, for all Shabbos, by the way, I care both about the quality of ink and the quality of paper. And I'll raise the bar. I want permanence of both. Why? Because this is Shabbos. This is Devar Shemitkayem. This is an Issur Doraita. I have a much greater demand. But baguette, I don't need that say. I don't need to say. I need Ktiva, so I need good ink. The Katavla Sefer Kutut. I need good ink. Strong ink, permanent ink. But the actual paper, I have less of a demand. It's not so crazy to understand that. That's appears with the sheets of the Rambam.
So back then, they probably used leaves and stuff for paper. I'm thinking a bit more than this.
Right, but also, like, it also depends what they use in the Mishkan.
Right.
Careful. I can make a greater demand in the Mishkan, because it's Shabbos, than I can in other areas of halacha. I can't. Mishkan already is Shabbos, right?
Right. I'm saying like that's why it's stricter because they didn't write on leaves in the Mishkan.
Again, it's this permanent concept.
Right. In Mishkan they only wrote on things that lasted.
Or any time they built the Mishkan, it was the intent for it to last.
Isn't the whole thing that they wrote the letters on the beams?
Yes, that was.
So the beams are things that last. They're not things like an animal form.
That's on paper.
Yeah. What? But it lasts. Paper lasts.
Right.
Just like
I agree. No, meaning that by Shabbos we'll have a higher demand. Right.
Right.
No, for sure. Okay. We have to end because it's getting a little bit late. There are other malachos that I wanted to go over and see if this idea this will explain a major problem in the Rambam by Tofer, by Kilayim. All these things are going to be questions how much we extrapolate to other areas in halacha. I just want to show you just a quick halacha l'maaseh before we end today. Just jump right away to the end of the source sheet, source 13. Yesh li zar shelo lichtov betzba'o b'mashkin al shulchan o ba'afar. That you're not allowed to use your finger and to say Aaron was here in sand, even though you know it's not going to last, right? Even writing temporarily is going to be usher. Now, it won't be doraisa. There's no question. There's still an issue d'Rabbanan to write on fog, snow, dirt, sand, ketchup. All those things are still going to be, like when you write.
Yeah.
Now, but of a mutter lurshum ba'avir. But if you want to say hi on Shabbos and I'm spelling it in the air, right? That appears to be okay, Ba'avir kimin otiot, right? That being said, look at this. Look at the Mishnah Berurah. Comes along the Mishnah, go to 14. Here's the Zahar, still more. Af b'chiv chatat le'gabina tchichtav davka b'diyo or b'shar davar ki'etzebem de b'shimus mitkayim. Filuach in the Rabbanan asu af b'eno mitkayim. It's clear the Mishnah Berurah tells us, listen, you're not chayav chatat, you're not doing doraita, but still, the chachamim utter things that are not mitkayim. That's what we've said. What? Okay, no, okay. So the air we're going to say is permitted. It's 100% mutter. Writing in the air because I'm not doing anything. I'm not producing a letter, nor am I writing on davar shemitkayim. I need to have one or the other.
It's not even writing.
Nothing exists. But I'm doing this. Nothing exists.
The fog lasts for a second.
What?
Even the fog lasts for a second.
Okay, fog lasts for a second. That's also the Rabbanan.
Because you're writing something, but it's writing in the air.
No.
That's so cool.
Like when you wake up in the morning and your car is covered in ice, so you would not be allowed to chisel out your name, I love you, honey, have a good Shabbos. You're not allowed to do that. Right? Or, follow me with an arrow. You can't do that. It's very convenient if you could, though. Right? The winter in Toronto makes, I'm at the neighbors. Right? Who needs to text anymore if you could do that? Again, we're not quite there yet in the weather.
Why is it to put banana bread?
What was that?
Why is it to put banana bread?
Oh, okay. You want to talk about bananagrams? Alright, and Scrabble. You play Scrabble on Shabbos. Okay, so the Shomer Shor Kilchasa makes a distinction when it comes to Scrabble between two different types of Scrabble. There's one type of Scrabble which is regular Scrabble, which just says you take letters and you spell out a word, and he says that's 100% permitted. But using Scrabble, which is going to lock that where each letter is locked in to a frame. I don't know. I'm not holding my Scrabble.
Some boards are flat boards.
And some words you lock the letters in so that when they get knocked, you don't ruin the game. And he holds that putting it in the Shomer Shor Kilchasa holds that playing Scrabble with the locked letters is problematic.